it through, it deposits a wee bit of calcite on the ceiling of the cave, and over a very, very long time it deposits these beautiful kind of white straws of crystal that you can see before you, and then they'll drip onto the floor below and form some of these curious stalactite formations, although it's not really a stalactite, that's more a sort of looks like a kind of bit of snot, really.
There is, it looks, well, I would say a lump of fudge, you know, more delicate about it.
Yeah.
That's formed directly under a stalactite.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And now here we've got some, what looks like animal hair hanging off the roof, just here. That's quite interesting.
Wow,
I can. Is that from a sheep or a deer? That's, I wonder. That's quite strange, I've never seen that before.
Because there are caves near here. I mean, there's the famous bone caves where they found bones that they've dated to 45,000 years ago.
So in the bone caves you have, I think that's the only place in the UK that we ever have actually bone evidence of polar bears having ever lived in the UK. That's how we definitely know they were here. I think these are quite unlikely to be from a polar bear.
But it is odd coming down to a place like this where you've got all this sort of fragile beauty around you, but thinking that, yeah, maybe this might have been a hideout of a bear back in the day.
Perhaps.
Hibernation spot. I mean, they found human skeletons as well in the bone caves. Of little apples growing on this tree. Nobody eats them. In church, I'm gonna pick these apples. Maybe 10 pounds of apples. just below the summit, and we were looking for somewhere that was out of the wind and would give us a good view. And we've dropped down to just at the bottom of a little cliff where there's almost like a semicircle seat just cut into it, but backs against the rock, out of the wind. Fantastic.
It is just a perfect little spot. It's nice and level, nothing jutting out. It's absolutely amazing. I think I could stay here quite happily for long enough, especially out of the wind. It's magic.
We have just got a stunning panorama here. To the south there's Ben More, the big hill, which is hiding its top in the cloud at the moment. Out directly west we can see the three paps on the Isle of Jura. To the north there's Glencoe, and then below our feet a clear 1,000 metres to the floor of the glen, and there's this sandy river, the Oud Corrichallen, which is meandering its way through these vivid green fields. What a seat. We don't have the opportunity to name the landscape. We've lost that. We don't have that. Do you ever look at the hills and think, well, what would I name them?
Yeah, I could think quite often. I mean, when you're coming up with us, I think our approach to hills today is totally different than the people who named them, because they were living in and out of the landscape, but they probably weren't going to be climbing up hills just for the views and to bag a Munro or anything. So I think our approach is so different today that yeah, I do think about it. I think you could have a lot of fun. So not some names that aren't too serious, maybe not too many pop culture references, but get some in there as well. Yeah,
it's interesting when you talk about pop culture references, because I guess we sort of assume maybe that all the main
for putting so much time and research into this episode. Anna works with lots of organisations, advising them on Gaelic language and heritage. If you think she could help you, then there's a link to her website on ours. And thank you so much to Siobhan Anderson, the musician who performed all the tracks on today's episode. She wrote this jig for her grandmother, who was brought up at the foot of Bin Dordon. Please check out Siobhan's band Whiskey Kiss. Thanks also to Paul Fraser for reading the English translation of the poem, to Hugh Williams for editing help, and to our sponsors, AppKit. Our website is mountainpodcast.com. Go there for all the links and pictures from this episode, and to listen to all the previous ones. And finally, thank you, yes you, for listening. It's really appreciated. I'm Christopher Slight, and this is Mountain. It's a spray, seriousness, it's pretty good.
relationships actually were less likely to develop eating disorders. But Dr. LaGrange's work that was published this year showed the opposite, which is interesting just in thinking about, that strong peer attachment not being protective, and is it that they're strongly associated with peers who also have abnormal eating behaviors, and what's the correlation with that? Mother dieting in early adolescence is shown to have more abnormal eating attitudes and behaviors, and then again early or late puberty also shown to have more abnormal eating attitudes and behaviors. So some of the things that we've thought. So how do we approach weight and body image with teens? So in terms of screening. And again, the importance of screening is underscored that was an adult study showed that half of all eating disorder cases go undetected in primary care. So you can imagine a patient with anorexia don't feel like there's a problem, so they're not going to offer anything necessarily. And patients with bulimia may feel such shame, patients with binge eating disorder may feel such shame that they also aren't going to offer anything. So really trying to think about screening questions that may give you an idea that there's a problem so you investigate further is important. That being said, providers are all asked to screen for just so much stuff that frequently this isn't thought of necessarily as a priority. So the SCOFF is a screener that has been validated and looked at in a number of different clinical samples, and is the one that's recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. And it's basically looking at, have you been doing anything to change your weight? So it stands for, have you ever made yourself sick or throw up to lose weight? Have you ever eaten a lot of food at once in a way that you felt out of control and couldn't stop? Have you recently lost more than 1 stone? It's British, that's how it got that. 14 pounds in 3 months. Do you think you're fat when others don't? And would you say food dominates your life? And two positive answers to this or more is recommendation for further investigation or further follow-up. Another thing that's important for clinicians to look like, particularly for adolescents and also for children, is the body mass index, and at least following that over time. So plotting height, weight, body mass index at each visit and looking for any red flags. And also using the growth chart to talk with patients and their families about pubertal changes as well as normal growth and development. That we do expect weight gain through adolescence, and that's normal, part of your body changing and developing. We wouldn't necessarily expect it to stay the same, or certainly for you to drop. Bright Futures is sort of the preventive screening guidelines for pediatricians, and it has just a number of different recommendations on how to screen for various things, including eating patterns and nutrition. The questions that they recommend pediatricians ask during preventive visits include, how often do you skip meals? To ask, their recommendations are actually like, what do you usually eat for dinner? I don't know about you, I find that a really super hard question. I don't know what I usually eat for dinner. It varies. So for me, I changed that a little bit to doing a 24-hour recall and asking patients, what did you have for dinner last night? Which at least gives me a better idea of what that might look like. Do you ever feel guilty or embarrassed by how much you eat? How do you feel if you miss a day of exercise? Have you ever taken laxatives or diet pills? And Bright Futures also has questions about body image that they recommend that pediatricians ask everyone during their preventive visits, which include, how do you feel about the way you look? How do you feel about your weight? Are you trying to change your weight? How? Have you ever dieted? Why? How do you tell if you're too thin or too heavy or just right? And how do you feel right now? And a lot of this is trying to also get at dieting. So, teen females who report moderate or severe dieting were found more likely than non-dieters to develop an eating disorder. Dieting itself is frequently implicated in the pathogenesis of eating disorders, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. A third to a half of adolescent girls and boys diet. So asking about it can be really important, just to know what kids are doing, because it also increases their own negative self-evaluation and their concerns about their shape if they're actively trying to change that. In addition Restriction in teens dieting has been found to actually lead often to weight gain rather than loss, and girls who diet are 12 times as likely to binge eat. Boys who diet are 7 times as likely to binge eat. So it's kind of that restricting. Oh, I need something now. I'm starving, and binging out of control. And then Bright Futures recommends talking about physical activity. So do you regularly participate in physical activity? If so, what do you do? How often? How much screen time do you spend per day? And how do you feel if you miss a day of exercise? So one thing I will say just in relation to screening is we will have a lot of patients referred to us because there's some concern about a possibility of an eating disorder from someone. And what I usually say and what others say is that if people are really suspecting the possibility of an eating disorder, even if you talk with the patient and you're not sure because you just don't get very much on the screening, it is likely that there's something going on. Because where there's smoke, there's typically fire in relation to this, and a lot of that is just because of the complexity of the symptoms and again the denial. So if symptoms are denied, you still have to have a high index of suspicion, and oftentimes if we're referred a patient or a family and we kind of can't get any data that really is supporting an eating disorder, but yet we're not totally reassured there's not, we'll still recommend that they follow up in a couple of months. We'll try and check in and make sure that it isn't that something's just developing then. So moving on to a little bit about early intervention. So first I would say any intervention is an important one, again because of the complexity of these diseases. Only 1 in 10 men and women with eating disorders actually receive treatment. There's numerous barriers to treatment, some of which I've already described, and that isn't even talking about insurance barriers and other barriers. And only 35% of people that receive treatment for eating disorders get treatment at a specialized facility or with a specialized treatment program or plan. We do have research that shows us that early intervention helps prognosis. Early
And
And how do you in the morning, which is really awesome. The
And that then charges me up. And I reach over, and I write in the room. And I reach over and I grab something. Because here's the deal, we're living within laws, period. Gravity is one of them. Cause and effect is another. What you put in is what you get out every time. And that is on every single level. I know you know that. So I'm operating, understanding that there are laws. The law is I put in greatness. The only thing that can come out is greatness. If I choose being in a conscious relationship, I'm still dealing with like my vulnerability and intimacy stuff, especially when it comes to men. I'm still breaking all that down, but I don't let it rule me. When that comes up, what is the strategy? I'm going to question how fast is this real? Is that really me? Is this going on? What would love do now? What is my sight not allowing me to see? Big questions change the game. Every question has an answer. Most people ask different questions. YouTube is really fun. I would suggest going to my YouTube channel and check out some of the videos. I really appreciate you, Deacon Rich Roll. No, I'm gonna call you that. No, this is awesome, man. Thank you for taking the time. And feel good, man. Feel good? Oh yeah, it's all good. Alright, you guys, that's our show. I hope you dug it. Hope you dug Preston. If you're in Los Angeles, don't forget to stop by Joy Cafe. That's where I'm gonna be eating most of my meals from now on. So it's safe bet that you can go there around the lunch hour or even many of the dinner hours that you might be able to find me there. And I hope to meet a lot of you guys soon. Also, we're now offering flat rate domestic shipping on all our plant power provision products. It's $4.99 no matter where you are in the U.S. and no matter how big or heavy the box is, no matter how many things you order. We think this is a great solution. We've had a historical problem with shipping rates, and so we're pretty excited to be able to offer this and keep those shipping rates lower for those of you that are overseas. We also have flat rate shipping, and you can find out what it is based on where you live and find out more about that on the website control.com. So pick up all your cool groovy gear, the Run RRP t-shirts, Plant Power t-shirts, our nutritional products, 9 copies of Fine Ultra, more garments, etc. We're going to be coming up with something soon. Those will be up for pre-order really soon, so I'll be making announcements about that. If you want to stay current with all things Plant Power, subscribe to my newsletter at richroll.com. It's the only way to get exclusive content and be the first to find out about deals, sales, and discounts on products, get a weekly podcast update, and I promise I will not spam you, just pertinent information and good stuff. If you're feeling stuck in your life, you're inspired by Preston's example, you want to expedite your own journey towards personal transformation, you might be interested in the course that I've got at mindbodygreen.com. It's called The Art of Living with Purpose. It's all about transformation. It's all about how to set and achieve goals. It's all about kind of the tools that I use personally, ones that I've learned through people that I've met along my journey that I've found helpful. So check that out. If you get even more Plant Power in your life, check out My Ultimate Guide to Plant-Based Nutrition, another online video course at mindbodygreen.com. You can find both those courses on the homepage, easy to find. Also, we got our new iOS app, our mobile app for the podcast. It allows you to access the entire catalog of the RRP all the way back to episode 1. Because on iTunes, you can only get the 50 most recent. So check that out if you haven't already. You can find it in the iTunes App Store and give us a review if you're enjoying it. Again, thanks to everybody who's been supporting the show by telling a friend and using the Amazon banner ad. Keep it up. You can donate to the show also if you feel like going the extra mile. You can do it by weekly, one time, any amount you want, whatever. And keep sharing your pictures on Instagram of the hows and whys of you doing the RRP. Just tag it at Rich Roll and I'll find it there. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, both at Rich Roll. I'm on Facebook, all those places, and I'm starting to post a little bit more. I took a break, but now I'm back. I'm going to be posting more videos on Snapchat. And on Snapchat, my handle is I am Rich Roll, I-A-M Rich Roll. This week's assignment to close it out. Pay attention to your thoughts. Identify the negative thoughts that move against you. You have a choice to take one of those thoughts, just one recurring negative thought pattern that you have, and invert it. Doesn't matter if you believe it, just act as if. Just turn it into a positive affirmation and repeat it until it becomes the new default thought, replacing the old negative one. Once you've mastered that, tackle another negative thought pattern. Repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Alright, and let me know how that goes in the comment section. I'm so grateful for this. Alright, guys, see you next week. Peace. Thanks. Welcome to the Rich Roll Podcast, episode 104 with Misc again. But before we get into it, a word from today's sponsor. Support the show, support the sponsors. I love these guys. LegalZoom, the reason I love them is because it takes the power away from these high-priced attorneys and puts it in your hands, power of the people. So when you're planning your future, you do financial planning, you get insurance, but to get real peace of mind, you gotta make sure your family and your finances are legally protected from me, a recovering lawyer. So where do you turn for legal help you can trust? LegalZoom.com. For over 13 years, they've been helping Americans get personalized wills, powers of attorney, and living trusts. LegalZoom also helps file LLCs, S corporations, and more to protect you against personal liability. The company was started by some of the best legal minds in the country, and they make it painless for you to get the legal protection you need. Got questions? You can always reach out to someone at LegalZoom, and they'll talk you through the process. You can get legal help through independent attorneys and self-help services at your direction, but they're not a law firm. For special savings, be sure to enter my code RICH, R-I-C-H, in the referral box at checkout. Go to LegalZoom.com today to protect your business and take control of your family's future. There's nothing more important than that. All right, on to today's show. The Rich Roll Podcast. Hey everybody, Rich Roll here. Welcome to my podcast, the RRP. Thanks for listening. Thank you for sharing the show with a friend. Thank you for all the feedback and the stories of transformation. Incredible tales, intimate tales that you've shared with me. And thank you for supporting the show by clicking through the Amazon banner at richroll.com for all your Amazon purchases. This really helps us out a lot, and I'm so appreciative to all of you who have do just that. It's a lifelong year, keeps us going. It's winning our sales, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. All you have to do is find the Amazon banner at richroll.com from the homepage on the podcast page. Just click it or bookmark it in your browser, better yet, and then just use that whenever you're going to buy something on Amazon.
65-year-old woman like gasping and, you know, dismissing herself, or was it all fine?
No, the opposite happened. After the end of my speech, all these like little old ladies came up to me and like put a hand on me and wouldn't let me go. It's
It's probably
crazy.
so refreshing from the boring, you know, cobwebby lectures that they're used to hearing at that place.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that.
Last, and I was so happy and relieved to take that suit off and be like, all right, you're getting hung up until the next time I have to go to court.
Which is on 9/11, right? Okay. For a traffic citation.
Yes, yeah, very minor.
Yeah, no, that was such a cool thing that happened. And you're finishing up the new album, right?
The new record is done. Hopefully we'll have Tyler will slip a song in at the end of this podcast.
Yeah. Which one do you want to have?
We'll do New Jersey Valentine's Day Orphan. That's a song off my new record called Coward's Path, which will be out in February. It's coming out on vinyl in the UK. And
That's super cool. So it was being mastered at Abbey Road. Yeah, you posted that picture of like some technician or artisan.
when I mentioned that to my dad, he didn't ask where the Windex was.
That makes sense.
He couldn't not be impressed by that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's so great.
How did you hook that up?
My friend Charlie, I've had the weirdest experience in the music industry, which is mostly empty promises and deceased people in that I've met. The two people who I work with are the fairest, kindest, most generous, most giving people. Alex Steininger at In Music We Trust, who's the guy who owns the stand and puts out my records here, and then Charlie Kennedy, who puts out my records in the UK. And they're just guys I got to meet through the scene. I mean, Charlie put Fresh Kills up the first time we went to the UK in 2009, and then he and I just stayed in touch. I didn't even try and sell him on the record. He was like, "We should talk about me putting out your record." And I was like, "Oh, I had no idea you had any interest." Yeah, all right, here's a copy. And he was like, "Okay,
Before they
yeah,
started
let's do
sending their
this."
garbage to Pennsylvania. 'Cause
So,
it's like,
yeah, my life is overflowing.
for a lot of out-of-state trash. You're gonna be able to get the vinyl in the U.S. though, or only?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But it's just being manufactured over there.
Yeah, and hopefully that means I'll have to go over there and do a tour.
So is that coming? So will that be February also?
Yeah, at the very latest it'll be in February. But I mean, the record will probably be available digitally before that.
And do you have tour dates locked down?
Yeah, I'm doing. I'll try and get you tour dates to put up when we post the podcast. But I'm doing a run from New York down to Austin, up through Dallas, stuff like that. Hopefully, all the way up to California in January and February.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Right on, man. So congratulations on the new single.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
It's beautiful, and again, it really does show your maturity as a writer. I loved it, and I see you stepping into kind of new, more complex terrain of dealing some sort of, title that will be provocative enough to bring people there, and then it's almost like an Onion article, like the new drugs.
I'm only going to write that article after I invent the secret society and then this concept of service, the new thing I invented.
Those are other, it could be great Onion articles as well. Those are good. I like that. We can do that. Another thing that you follow through with before we do our live show next time you're in LA.
Before we have the traveling road show.
Can we do a live show in New York?
Yeah, go to West Wind.
Yeah, no problem. Sidewalk Cafe.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. That would be fun. Actually, that would be really fun to plan it ahead of time and do a live show, live podcast.
Me and you and JJ will do a puppet show.
That would be good. Let's think about that. Let's try to figure that out.
Great.
Dig it.
Awesome.
All right, man. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Rich, thanks for having me. Great to be back.
You're an inspiration. You're my co-host. I love you, Michelle. I love this new Kindle single. So everybody should go check it out. If you're new to the podcast, go back and listen to our other interviews. I don't know what numbers they are, but there's 4 or 5 of them out there, something like that.
There's all kinds.
So yeah, like you can learn a lot more about. We get into all of Michigan's background. We covered all of that, but go to Amazon, check out. Use the Amazon banner at original.com, of course, right? If you want to support the show. Check out his new Kindle single, Unlicensed, and his other ones too. If you're new, you might want to start with The Long Run, which is probably the one he's most known for, but there's plenty of good stuff out there. And this piece really does mark like a quantum leap forward in their talents and in kind of really looking at the universal themes of the emotional interior landscape that we all deal with, especially in this age. So I commend you, and I'm not surprised that it's number one. I think it's going to be staying number one for quite some time. And by the way, The Long Run still kicks Finding Ultra Fast on Amazon. Don't think that I'm not pissed about that.
We can take it out on the trails tomorrow.
All right, thanks. So if you want to connect with Misca, MiscaShabali.com, at Misca Shabali on Twitter, at Misca Shabali on